Are we live now? Oh, there we go. Got it.
We are now, yep.
All right, so just our regular Friday stand-up. And Bryce, do you want to go first? Make you repeat some of the things you said already, I guess.
No, yeah, I can go ahead and start. So most of my stuff this week has just been lots of little tiny bug fixes, a lot of e-filing specific fixes, and then today I found a few more affidavits. Essentially, half of these are coming from like going through user sessions on the motion to stay eviction and seeing like, oh, this person didn't make it to the end. Did they run into an error screen? Because we don't have the e-filing proxy is a bit split in terms of like what might pop up as an error for us during monitoring. And it has been a fix from some of those parts. And then I've also just been constantly monitoring the email box that we have for all errors, which means lots of other errors show up, which means I've been doing lots of other small fixes, including a few for the affidavit of indigency. And yeah, and I think there were a lot of other ones. I don't quite remember all of them. But yeah, so that was a lot of what I've been doing for the past few days. And when I get the chance, I've been also trying to just dump a bunch of documentation into some topic specific things where it's like saying like, oh, use this login information to go in here, since we can't post that publicly. But everywhere else that I can, I'm trying to just put it still in the GitHub repo for now, for the e-file proxy. That's the main thing that needs a lot of documentation. I think that's really my update. Yep.
Okay, great. Just curious, like out of the pattern of the errors that you're seeing, like, are there different process things we should be thinking about? You're saying a lot, you're running into a lot of sessions where users run into errors we didn't discover, essentially, that stop them from getting to the end of the interview or from filing.
Yeah, so that's an e-filing issue, because there's like too much handling going on. And so we only get right now, like we're only getting monitoring when we get a docassemble error, like docassemble itself throws an error and says, I don't know what's going on. Those errors get sent to like our email box, and we get those. And we also get emails from the proxy server itself if something goes wrong there and there's any sort of like Java error that gets thrown. We get an email there, or actually no, anytime there's like an error log. So if it's anything that we notice that's running and it's like, oh, this is very bad, log an error, we get a notification for that. But we sometimes there aren't things that are like considered an issue for the proxy server. It would just say like, it will just pass on like what what Tyler has said or something like that. It might not be like look exactly like an error, but the docassemble side, it does consider an error, and we just show a screen, like we aren't making docassemble through an error. And so those things don't get directly sent. That's one of the things I think I did a little bit of work on that yesterday, and I want to try and go through more and make sure every time we show like bad screens like that we're logging it in those emails and getting sent, because they should be, and it's very good for that to happen. And then I think to answer your other question of just like if there are all the other issues we have, if there are process things we should change, I want to try and like look at them closer, because I've been sort of scattershotting a lot of them, and try and determine if there's anything there. Most of them have been just fairly obscure. Like one of the indigency ones was if you made an expense and then you edited the category specifically, like if you went back and you just changed like the amount, it was fine. But if you edited the category, it would show you an error. And that was just something I hadn't covered in testing. And there are probably a few other similar things where they're like very specific trees and choices that you have to make to actually trigger the error, and they just aren't things that we are testing. So in general, better testing, like long-term things of just like when we put out, but it's hard to say if there's a specific process besides just test better, which is not super actionable. So
yeah, and it's not realistic to say we're going to get to 0 bugs. That's not like a reason.
yeah,
Just one
yeah.
side of it to bugs.
Mhm.
Yeah. Okay.
But yeah, I would look closer a bit at those. It might be a thing I get to do next week. It might not be, but we'll see. That's all I got.
Okay, Caroline.
Well, it's been a week of Mercury in retrograde as far as I'm concerned. It feels like every possible tech thing that could go wrong has gone wrong, including Anchorage lost power on Wednesday afternoon. So it just feels endless. However, I'm being optimistic this morning. We're doing well. Michelle helped me. I'm just exhausted because I feel like I'm working 20 hours a day trying to make up for all this stuff that is not going the way it should. So Michelle helped me figure out some logic yesterday on this interview, which was great. So then I ran I'm doing these tests in two chunks. So one is just going, so basically the interview is changing an order. And right now it's if you change an order for this order or that order for this reason or that reason. And I'm just about finished going through all of those. And then my next step is to, well, what happens if you want to change more than one order for more than, one order for one reason and another order for a different reason? And then, so I'm not quite, I was going to start that this morning, but anyway, the last little section of tests, I just couldn't get to work. It's not the test. I couldn't get the interview to work that way. Michelle helped me with it. And then she showed me some of this troubleshooting, how to put in log, you can do console, or she said something, I can't remember what the other option was. I could look it through the browser. Oh, the other one was just to go into the doc assemble log. So I chose the console. And that was helpful to figure out what that's really helpful, because then you know how far you've gotten before, what the path is. So for each step, we put in a log 1, log 2, whatever. So I knew where we were, and then it would kick the error. So that helped. So I got those tests. At the end of the day, I couldn't do anything. So then last night I fixed the test. I knew there was a problem with the text. I don't know whether there was too many spaces or missing pipe, whatever. I put it through Gherkin. It couldn't find the problem. So last night I just copied and pasted it all over again, and it passed in my in the playground. So then I pushed the whole thing to GitHub. So I have like 7 or 8 feature files with tests in them. So I pushed the whole thing to GitHub. And then I looked at it this morning, and all these tests that so there were 8 tests that had passed in those other files that then failed. And so I thought, well, that's weird. So I ran the interview manually on my playground this morning, and I got what I expected. And I went back and I looked at the test on GitHub, and what they got on GitHub was not what I got locally. So then I ran the test locally in the playground, because obviously you follow the steps. And, did I write the test wrong? No, I didn't write the test wrong. And then I ran the test in the playground and it passed. So I didn't change any code. So now I think there's a problem with the way, and then there were 8 of them. So I went through all 8 this morning, and then I realized that I think the pattern, I haven't got the whole pattern, but from what I can tell, if you say today minus a certain number of days, A.L. Kiln in the playground calculates it differently from the way A.L. Kiln on GitHub calculates it. And A.L. Kiln in the playground calculates it the way you would calculate it. So basically, September 22nd minus 11 days is September 11th. So if you put the date September 11th in, that the test says today minus 11, it comes up with that, and then you get, you're out of the reconsider period and you're into the appeal and set aside period. But so I was getting all these wrong answers, and there's 8 of them, and I know that there are other, and so it's interesting too, because that date corresponds, there's a text you can choose. You can say, instead of putting a date in, because you can't remember the exact date, you can pick within the last 10 days, within the last 15 days, within the last 30 days. None of those are failing. It's just the calculation of the date. So I sent her a message on Teams this morning. I sent Michelle a message on Teams this morning, saying, do you want to talk about this? Do I need to talk about this with you separately, or should I bring it up and stand up? But she's not here. So I just thought, so that's where I am. It's not stopping me from anything particularly, except that I would like to, I think it's important. And the other thing is, so this is when it's calculating, the test is today minus 1 day. There's like a critical period. So what I'm testing is 1 day outside of the critical period. So the test is today minus 11 to be within the 10-day period. But what I feel like there's other tests with that math that are working, but I'm not sure. I didn't get a chance to check if I'm doing other tests with this, like 1 day outside of the period. But anyway, that's what I've been working on this morning.
So what my guess from like hearing you describe all of this, and just I think GitHub runs on UTC. So
it's a different time zone, right?
Yes, it's definitely a different time zone. I think it's UTC.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things that like UTC is plus 5 or 6 for like the East Coast, but it's like plus 12 for you. And so if it's I don't know if 1 day off makes a difference for what you're doing.
Well, this is what I did think about that, but the thing is, it's running it. So it's running it on so when it runs a test, is it running it on my DocAssemble server on Amazon in Seattle or something? I mean, is it?
So no, it's not about where it's running.
Yeah.
It's about the settings on the computer. Like the settings on the server, like if you have the time zone set correctly on the server, which I think DocAssemble lets you do, like in the configuration, you can set it to whatever time zone you're in. I don't know what that looks like.
You're not talking about the DocAssemble server. You're talking about DocAssemble.
No, I am talking about
AWS, right? Where you have to do in the env.lst thing. Right?
No, there's a no, yeah. So they're in the configuration. I'm looking at it now. I don't want to share it because it's keys and stuff. But there's something in the config called time zone,
right? And
my default one is on my like local machine, or my local copy of DocAssemble is America/New York, and I think that's that's the same.
Yeah, I've got Anchorage. Yeah.
So if you have Anchorage there, that means it's using your local time zone.
Right.
It would be like what you expect it to be.
Mm-hmm.
That's the only thing I can think is that as actually different, because the Kiln code is very simple, And the only thing that it actually does is it does like create a new date, which I think defaults to like today, whatever that computer thinks is today. And
Right.
so
But today minus 11 is the computers today. I mean, it's the computers today as well, right?
not
I
if
mean,
it's after midnight though. Like if it's like, I don't know what the difference is. It's like if it's
why
UTC
is
plus 10.
UTC? Why are they worried about UTC? Because wherever isn't the minus the number of days relative to the date on the computer where they're running the interview?
But there's two
That's what I would
different there's two different computers. If it's running on GitHub, there are two different computers. It's still like running the interview itself.
Oh, it's like GitHub
server.
what's today on GitHub versus the day. Oh, I get it.
That's my guess, but I
Yeah,
don't know for sure.
right. That's I didn't have as many, I wasn't as confident, but I figured it was something like that.
Yeah.
Different time zones. Yeah. And because it's a day, because it's off by a day. And
yes. Okay. If it is, I wasn't sure how exactly it's failing, but if it's just always off by like one day, then
yeah. So if I change
it.
the day, one day,
And if we
okay,
wanted to get really, really specific with it,
Hours.
it might work for you early in the morning for you.
Right.
And like and then after 1 p.m. it will just suddenly start failing mysteriously.
right. That makes a lot of sense. So UTC, that's Greenwich Mean Time?
Yes. Yeah.
It's not the same as British time because there's summertime.
Daylight savings time. That's right.
Yeah, it's without, I think it's without daylight savings time.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So, all right. So, well, that was my suspicion. So,
That's a fair suspicion, and I do think that's the case.
yeah.
Yeah, so y'all are -8, which means any time after
Well,
4 p.m.
we're minus UK 9. So I guess
Yeah.
that would be UTC would be minus 10.
Mhm.
And then in Hawaii, that would make them minus 12.
And
Yeah.
they're about to switch over, right? They have daylight savings time before we do.
Who, the UK?
UK and Europe.
Yeah, they usually are a week or two ahead of us. Depending on,
The most confusing week to schedule things.
well, because the other thing that's really confusing on top of that is, I can't remember which one it is, but in the fall, they do it 2 weeks earlier, and in the spring, they only do it a week earlier, or either they do it a week earlier in the fall and 2 weeks earlier in the spring. It is confusing, and I used to be able to do 5 hours. 9 hours completely freaks. 9 hours is just too hard. Okay, so anyway, that's what I'm struggling with, and then I've got a logic problem, which I'll if my brain is still mush. It feels a little better today, but maybe I'm just imagining it. I'll go to Michelle. So, but yeah, this interview is complicated. Not as bad as the ones you guys have done. But and oh, so I just want to say Jack joined us on Tuesday for the AL income module, and that was really helpful. I know that Jack knows a lot about non-traditional work. What I didn't realize is that he comes from a family of fishermen, and they know all about captains and deckhands and how they get paid and what they think about. I mean, it's really helpful to just think about how people think about. So I think we made some progress. But that was, I knew Jack's input would be fantastic, and it was. So, but we're not meeting next Tuesday. Possibly the Tuesday after that. I can't remember. So we're going to slow down a bit, but Chris said that would be okay. So we are sort of coming along slowly. But that's where we are with that.
And I'll make an issue on film. It doesn't look like there is an existing one for the time zone thing. I'll make an issue just so Michelle knows what we talked about here.
Oh, I had one more question. That didn't come up from Standup, but came up from the stuff I've been working on with Quentin and Mia on Up to Code. It looks like and Michelle said she thought this was a Doc Assemble issue, that you have to be a member of an organization to push to a repository and make a PR. It's not just a collaborator. Mia said that she had already merged a pull request that I did in May. I went back and looked at all the closed pull requests. None of them are for me that I could see. So I thought I had been able to do it, and then I couldn't. And then now I can't. Now I couldn't until Quentin. You made me. That's what you did. You made me a member of Lemma Legal, right? Of the organization.
I think I just had to approve your request, and Bryce, you did the same thing for Suffolk Lit Lab, right? I had to approve your request from your GitHub OAuth credentials to have access to Write. It's more more about that OAuth flow than like your actual literal permissions.
But the
it's
thing
like
is,
a separate request.
I had I mean, I'm pretty sure I've pushed stuff to Suffolk before.
Yeah.
And the only reason I had to do it, maybe I didn't
New
have,
server.
Maybe it was a new server. Yeah.
I think that's all it is. It's just like for that particular GitHub organization, not the GitHub organization, but the OAuth organization and everything like that set up.
Right.
The first time you connect to GitHub, you have to check off, approve access to all the things that you can control, and you do it for each OAuth connection you make.
I see. Okay, so that makes
Even a new profile on the same server, I think, might need the same thing.
Oh. Yeah.
Not 100% sure, but
okay, so it's not the organization, right? So that's not really a Doc Assemble thing at all.
If you're part of the organization, I think you can just approve it yourself. I think that's
right.
maybe
right. Yeah, right. Okay, that makes sense. Okay. Huh.
I'm not 100% sure, but that's what I'm thinking.
Well, that makes more sense. That makes a lot more sense because I was coming from this new Doc Assemble server, and I was pushing, but I was pushing to my own repositories, and I guess at some point, if I'm pushing to Alaska, maybe I'm already a member of the I'm actually an owner of the organization, so maybe that was okay because it was the same profile. I don't know. Yeah, or whatever. Yeah. Username, different username, but same profile. And that was fine, but that was why it wasn't working before. Okay, that makes a lot of sense that way, but it's a little complicated, but I get it. Meanwhile, I still can't get my court email on my brand new iPhone. I've been to IT at the court. I've been to Verizon. I've been to Apple. I went to the other Apple. Now they're telling me to go to Microsoft. Somehow I don't think Microsoft is going to help me. Oh, well. So that's me. I'm done now. Sorry.
No worries. Not a lot for me to update. We've been busy with the clinic and David being out most of the week, but let me see. We had a good check-in with our partners on Monday with some outstanding pull requests that we have on the assembly line repository. Didn't get a lot of feedback, but I think it was the right thing to just ask for it. We'll check one more time and then probably be able to merge it on Monday. This impounded address and impounded phone number feature.
Yeah.
I am going back, and we were using some of the exercises that are on the legal tech class in our clinic and actually running through them and then hearing feedback from students. I'm taking a chance to revise some of those and add more details.
Was that for the documentation or when you say running through the exercises?
There were some tutorials that we had, so some of them came from DocaCon, when we had it as a learning DocaCon with classes. I've reused some of those exercises and now that I'm doing it with students and they're giving me feedback, I'm going to go add some more details to it to clarify things that confuse them.
That's always helpful.
Yeah.
Like you
And
say, it's endless, right?
it is endless, yes. And part of it is like helping them understand what they need to know and it's okay to be drinking from the fire hose a little bit.
Mhm.
But I don't want people to feel at sea when they don't need to. So that's
Or
add
actually,
that context.
finish what you're saying, but I wanted to come back to you about the one of the features on the dashboard
Okay.
and ask you a question about that. Go ahead. It made me think of that.
I think that's what I really did this week. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was gonna say relevant to that while we were doing stuff yesterday. I was keeping in mind, but I was also like, wait a second, DocAssemble still doesn't show the proper line numbers. And so I made a PR for that, and Jonathan already merged it. So
Mhm.
on airs, it should at least show the actual line number in the YAML
Oh,
file
wow, that's
instead of
huge,
just
Christ.
Amazing.
instead
I
of
mean,
just
it
like
says
here's the
841, so you have to take like 40 lines ahead. And
no, yeah. And I think recently he did like finally print the whole block. So it'd be like you'd have to look at that, you'd have to know roughly where it is or what to search and then actually search it. But yeah, it actually says what the line is. It doesn't, there are like so many different ways that it can fail. And so I don't know. There might be a few places where like the line number shows up. If like there's like a Python error, it might be incorrect. But if it's like a YAML error, which I know is really common for like when you're first starting, then it will show like the exact line number. But if you ever see any line numbers that are wrong, let me know and I can like slowly add those in as well.
Oh, that's terrific.
I don't think it's released yet, but if it's
Yeah.
but when he does, so yeah.
Yeah, because that's what I do is sometimes I just take the whole, I dump it into Chat GPT and I said, please help. And they say, it's too much code. I can't read this much.
Oh, okay. Well, I was going to say, like, that was another thing I tried to model for the students is how to use ChatGPT as a debugging rubber duck, if nothing else.
Oh, you guys, I wanted to ask you, what are somebody was asking me. Oh, I know, it was a tech guy here. I was saying, because you guys, you use ChatGPT, but you've been using some other stuff as well, right? More than ChatGPT.
A Copilot.
Copilot, right?
Maybe GitHub Copilot.
And was there another one? I thought there were two others that you mentioned.
Michelle has mentioned a few other websites. I don't remember what they are though.
Maybe David was using. Quentin, you only use Copilot? Is that who's?
I mostly use ChatGPT, like the paid subscription, so I can get GPT-4, and then I use Copilot just because I have it installed locally, and so it suggests stuff for me as I code normally.
Yeah. Oh, that's cool. Is it Code Pilot or Copilot?
Copilot. Yeah, just like an airplane.
Okay, right. Okay. All right. I'll let him know. I thought there was another one.
Copilot's good. Here, I'll send a link to it. Copilot's good. I've been using it as well. When it works, it's great. However, it like causes enough performance issues on my VS Code thing that it literally makes typing a sentence like impossible because it will drop a letter or like mix them up enough that I end up having to turn it off. But like when I have it on, it's great. It's like, hey, this is the exact thing that I would add in this DocAssemble. So
that's pretty cool because it's smart enough. Like it's not been trained on DocAssemble interviews.
No,
but it knows the whole context of the folder.
Which is the part that's much more useful for me because half the time I ask ChatGPT things, it isn't helpful, especially with like the Java stuff because it doesn't have the 900 million auto-generated Java Java classes that I have. But Copilot knows, and Copilot actually like has like, oh, you did this elsewhere in your code, you should do this here, and it's pretty much everything. So when it works though,
and you have them both integrated with VS Code. It's just you turn them on and off.
I use it and I just accept the performance penalty. So but I have noticed it. So that confirms like my guess that it was probably due to Copilot. But I also have some of like the optional experimental extensions turned on. So I wondered if that was.
I'm okay with like a performance issue, but for me it was like I guess the specific performance issue, which is I can't type correctly and like my cursor jumps back and forth like that
makes it crazy, doesn't it?
That just like I can't actually code. But I'd be okay if it was just slightly slower, but it would still type everything in the right order. I don't know what combination of extensions I have that makes it like that, but
Mhm.
yeah.
All right, this is on your Linux computer?
Yeah, it could be a Linux thing too.
Yeah.
So
Well, I mean, I assume it's the same. I'm just curious because if I was assuming like, oh, maybe there's something going on with WSL for me that was slowing it down. It would be faster on Linux, I would guess. But what kind of specs do you have? Like, how much RAM and what kind of?
I got like
CPU?
a lot of memory. My CPU isn't like super great. I think it's an i7 or an i5. Whatever it is, I got it in 2015. And
i7 would be good.
I haven't updated it since then. So it's an
2013?
2015. It's an old
2015.
CPU. So
Yeah.
it handles everything else very well. But I am also running like my own copy of Docassemble, the actual Java server itself, and like 5 other things at the same time. So it could just be slow.
That's fair. Yeah. So I don't have any secrets there, but yeah, that's interesting. I think, Caroline, if like you're trying to figure out I think Michelle has like been trying to figure out ways to use ChatGPT 4 for free. And there's like various online websites that give you like 1 query a day or something.
Oh, okay.
So that's what I think she's been talking about. It's like,
Yeah,
it's
no,
not
it
about
was-
the fact that it's a
yeah.
different model to do free access.
I think it was a conversation that you guys were having with David about AI and stuff. That's where and I thought there was some other word I remember hearing, but maybe it wasn't. Maybe it was in a different context. But that's really helpful because I'll at least let the guy know here. Can I ask you my question about the dashboard?
Sure.
So when you we were saying, I think we've said it in a couple of meetings. Wait a minute, let me go. Okay, so you're in the dashboard. If you want to just update, because we're talking about if you just want to update all your assembly line packages, you can go to the install assembly line card, right? That's the way you do it. You go to continue. Okay, so the thing is that it says basic server settings. I got to this screen and it tells me the server title, which seems to just be the URL. Then it says server short title and app name. And the messages, these are not required for the assembly line, but may leak out in log files and emails. You should get these right if you can. How do you check? I don't know what right is. I mean, do we have, did I put this, do we have this somewhere else? Like, where is the oh, so this server title is actual words, not the URL.
Yeah.
So is this coming? This must be coming from somewhere, unless the dashboard made it up based on the URL. I mean, where are these things? Where are these? Where is this?
I'm sorry, I was muted that whole time. I was saying like, yeah, this is the default. I think it's getting the defaults from the configuration, which again, I don't want to open.
No. Okay. All right. So let me just.
But
That's
yeah,
right. That's what
I think just Docassemble has strange selections for the defaults. I think the issue
in all the spots, I think.
Sorry, what was that?
I think the defaults are just Docassemble.
Okay.
So this is on our dev server though, right?
Oh,
now.
I see default. So in the config, I see Docassemble dev, dev server is short title. Okay,
yes.
Let me go back.
Yeah. Sorry, I shared just to show you like what good examples of these probably are, and not like what you should be seeing.
Oh yeah,
okay.
yeah. No. Yeah. Okay. So and then the app name, presumably the app name's in the config as well, right?
Yeah, it may not be there yet because I think it's not automatically there. It is a useful thing to set because if you have GitHub set up on multiple servers and you don't have a unique app name between the two, it'll overwrite the GitHub configuration.
So sorry. So should I put app name in the config, or are you saying app name is what GitHub has given it? What it's called in GitHub?
It's what it gets. So it identifies itself to GitHub.
Okay.
And that's what it uses to identify itself.
So if I were to change the app name in the config, would that wreck my, would that wreck anything in GitHub right now? Like start a new
Good question.
something?
No,
You know?
I don't think so.
No? Okay.
No, I think it's just like when you first push the profile settings, I think it appends that or combines it somehow with the name of the SSH key it makes for you. So yeah, it doesn't really hurt anything. I think
Okay,
that's-
so,
Okay.
but it would be, so if it's not in the config, could I go to GitHub and see what it's, that's on GitHub, it would say what it's called, right? That's where it's being used. If I wanted to check what's on this screen, the basic server settings with what GitHub thinks the name is, I would find it on GitHub with the,
I'm not sure if you would see it on GitHub or not. I think it's just in like, if you go in your GitHub configuration and look at your SSH keys that are saved, which I don't even remember how to.
your
I get-
GitHub configuration, which is not, where's your
Profile, your GitHub profile.
Oh, your GitHub profile, okay.
And then let me see if I can find it.
And is
I
that
think it's under your profile, literally your profile. Let me
your
look to see.
personal profile, your own profile?
I think. Oh, maybe not. Might be under settings. Let me look. I'm gonna see if I can poke around and find it.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, under settings, so there's an area called SSH and GPG keys.
Okay, and settings is, you're logged in as oh, you could be logged in as, okay.
It creates a key here. They have to be unique names, otherwise it overwrites the existing one.
You know,
The
I'm
way
not
Mock
seeing
Assemble
it.
decides what name to send to GitHub when it makes
Right.
this
Oh, I see
SSH key.
SSH and GPG.
That's where
Oh,
it's just
I
combining
see.
the app name with
I get it. Okay,
this. So it's like a little wonky how it matters.
right,
But the basic
Yeah.
thing is just make it unique to the server.
yeah,
That's you won't have any problems with it.
okay, that makes sense. I didn't want to go any further because I thought, well, how do I know if they're right? I would try to check for that. And then, so if I just go continue, okay, great. So then, so if these are already done, it's asked as optional API configuration. If they're already done, then I don't need to check them, right?
If they're already done, you don't have to change them. Yeah, don't worry about it.
Yeah.
I should make one that's just like, hey, update all the assembling packages, make that its own dashboard, probably.
Yeah. Do you want to enable answer sets? I don't
Did
know.
we not have that? I thought one of the things, update packages shows just the.
Does
oh, no, I
show
guess it
just
shows all of them.
shows everything. That's the problem.
Okay.
Oh, so this is install packages. When you say update, let me go back to the dashboard. So yeah, so you've got install assembly line. Oh yeah, update packages. So we were talking about this. We were saying it's better to do the install because it does all of them in the right order. Whereas these, I suppose if you do tick all the ones you want, then it will do them in the right order. Weren't we talking about this the other, like on Monday? Or the previous Monday? With
I must
the
be
grant
complete-
partners?
I'm completely blanking on the ordering conversation. I'm not sure. What was
Oh.
that? Or what
Right.
that, who said
I
that
just
last
thought
night,
that,
what-
I mean, unless we
Order's
have,
not too important, but yeah, like, I think the big thing is to have them be in sync with each other before
Right.
you run the next interview. So if you just try to go through and remember by clicking the update button one by one on the update packages page, you might miss a package, and then an
yeah,
update in one really depended on the new version of the other one, and
right,
you might
right.
have an issue.
So I guess my thing is there's a lot of screens to go through to just update the whole assembly line. All the packages in assembly line. If you use install assembly line, you've got to go through all these screens. Maybe you do the bulk package update and just click all the assembly line packages if you just want to update assembly line, and then your server will install them and update them in the right. Well, like you say, maybe it's not the order, but just that they're all done together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that should do it.
Okay. All right. Well, maybe we should I don't know. I'm just thinking some more to do, right? But going back to the dashboard and the install and assembly line is, there are quite a few screens to go through that people might not know how to answer them. And then they don't want to
Yeah.
keep,
We could definitely make the setup better.
right?
I don't run through it super often, and so it's probably.
And you guys have plans to add in the Twilio and the email to this, the configurations for those? Don't you have to
Believe
go get
so.
accounts? And we have to do that for the Google API and the GitHub.
Twilio is like now a really big pain. So I'm not
Yeah,
so
that's
sure.
what I was seeing those.
It's
You
so
guys
well.
were on LSN Tap or something, right? Talking about it.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not sure if I can just recommend everyone go through the hassle of setting up a Twilio campaign so people can log in and get text message reminders, but it's probably worth it if you have a big server.
Yeah.
And you're doing a lot of these, but it's really annoying.
And you want to do texting, right? I mean, so email, I think we were using that is SendGrid, but it's Twilio SendGrid, isn't it?
Yeah, Twilio bought SendGrid, but it's still totally independent.
Oh, I see. Okay. I need to get that set up pretty soon. I thought I had, but I haven't. And I tried to do it on my own server, and for some reason they don't think I'm verifiable or credible or trustworthy or something, so they wouldn't let me set up an account. I thought, okay, I'm not spending any more time on this.
Yeah.
Don't need to email that badly from my own server. All right. Okay, well, thank you for all that. I know that was more than just a.
No worries. I mean, I know like the dashboard, I kind of just build it as good enough to solve the problem I have in front of me when I add new features.
Yeah.
But if other people need it, then I can add more things.
Yeah, I'm not trying to add to your to-do list because I thought it was just one screen. How do I check it? And then I'm going through and going, oh, there's quite a few screens here.
Yeah. Well, I am really curious to know like how this will fit in with what 10x might be able to help us with.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't really know what part they wanted to do.
Did David have that, or were you part of that conversation, or was it just David talking to them? It was this week, right? He was going to talk to them.
It was just David. We have a meeting scheduled next week, but I do wonder. I don't know. I guess we don't have to stream this part anyway.
No.